Welcome to FFC Top 3, a show where we, your FFC hosts, count things down from 3 to number 1. Thank you for joining us this week. If you have a suggestion for a topic for Top 3, be sure to drop us a note in the usual places, Twitter, Discord, or even focusfirechat@gmail.com. We've actually been getting a lot of suggestions, so I'm really excited to see some of the upcoming Top 3s and see how Blue handles some of the different topics that are coming up, because some of them are a little bit geared towards him.
Rude.
But this week, we're discussing our top 3 kind of sort of emotional or sad endings to a video game. And that one,
and it's funny because apparently I was the one that didn't have that much problems with it.
Well, I think, okay, so we have a guest host on today. One of our...
Wait. You didn't tell me it had to be a video game.
It doesn't have to be a video game for you. You're fine.
Okay.
I was about to say, whoa. Wow.
Yeah, no, wow. It's fine because we have
I need to get that sound clip.
Let me explain this, though. We've got a guest host on with us. She's been on here before, and it's PurpleChimera. Purple is with
Rainbow Cast.
Yes, we have a rainbow cast today with Purple, Green, and Blue. But Purple has admittedly not played as many video games as some of the rest of us, including myself. And so Purple gets
not a lot, you mean like 4.
They get a pass. They get to to pick their emotional endings to whatever, whether it's a musical, a movie, something, book. They're going that direction.
Yeah,
Blue, on the other hand, and I, on the other hand, I'm going to do video game based ones. What's up, Blue?
That's fine. I don't know if you're going to give Parker
another shout out.
Really appreciate the email, dude. Like that was, I really like that. That was really cool. And
so
I'm glad that we're making your car rides fun, because that's like a huge compliment.
Parker Schilling is the one who suggested this week's topic. And he's actually suggested quite a few other ones.
Is that what you're talking about?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that last one's going to be fun.
Really?
Yeah, because I mean,
okay.
Okay. We'll discuss it.
All right. That one I have mixed feelings about because I don't do that. But let's start with Blue. We'll go Purple second, and I'll end up third.
Okay. So,
Blue, what's your number 3?
My number 3 is actually a toss-up, because one of them. So I don't. One of them's an indie game, and then the other's Gears of War 2. I don't know if any of you Green, have you played Gears of War at all?
I have played probably about 2 hours worth of it.
I'm assuming Purple has not. I think that's a safe assumption.
I watched my husband play a little bit of it one time.
Did you watch the first one or a different one?
I have no idea.
Okay, cool. That's fine. No, that's fine. The reason I ask is like Gears of War as a whole, like as a series, is very obviously very geared towards a particular demographic of game player. And that's fine. And actually, it's fine at all. It's a great series. It's actually got some really cool lore in it. And if we ever get a chance to do an extra lore on it, I'm actually really excited for it. The book series behind it is amazing. But Gears of War 2 had, like, for a game that's really very similar to like Doom-esque like gameplay, Gears of War 2 had like a huge, and it wasn't like, I guess it's not a huge twist ending, but one of the characters, Dom, actually has a very compelling storyline that throughout Gears of War 2, you actually connect to Dom at a very personal level, because he basically the entire time you play through the game, he's looking for his wife who has gone missing. And long story short, you end up finding out that she's actually not only been kidnapped, but actually assimilated into the enemy faction, and Dom is actually the one that has to end up killing her, basically. And so it's like this huge thing where it's like he's got, the standard Lancer, he's got to go up against his wife, basically. And it's like this huge, I mean, like it's for a game, again, for a game that is like not, I don't know how it's it's not super deep, like at a lot of parts. It actually just like completely out of left field just sledgehammers you in the feelings. So that's that one. And then completely like, so I feel like a little bit of a bipolar person saying these two together, but completely on a different scope, but also tied for number 3, is a game called Gone Home.
Okay.
It's like, I want to say it's like I want to say it's an indie game. I think it's an indie game. I don't know if you guys have ever.
I've never even heard of that one.
Oh my god, it's so the entire time, like it's like a Myst-esque game. Like it's a first person puzzle game, and the entire time you're basically exploring your family house. Like you come home and you basically your family is supposed to be there and they're not, and so the entire time, and it's like storming outside, and it's like the entire time it feels like it's a horror game. It's like making you think that there's going to be a thriller. It's it's like the environment is like it's setting it up to be like this, jump scare. It never goes there. Instead, it goes in a completely just like completely different direction. And what's beautiful about it is that because you're expecting it to be a horror game, you don't really like. It's not until about halfway through the game where you start realizing that, oh, this isn't gonna be like a hack and slash game. This is gonna be like an actual like psychological like interesting story. And oh my god, the ending! If you guys haven't played it, I'm not gonna ruin it because it's a really quick game to play. I think I beat it in like 1 or 2 sittings. It's a couple hours, and it is seriously one of my favorite. It's up there with Oxenfree as far as like one of my favorite games, really. Because of the actual, like, just a little snippet of the story that you get from it. And the ending is it just crushes you. Like, and I know that's a weird thing to be like, no, you need to go play. But it's like you get so emotionally attached to, like, what's going on with the, not even with your character. I mean, your character has a lot going on, but it's actually because you're seeing, you start uncovering, like, day-to-day stuff about the family that is not there, and we don't know where they are. And so she's like, and you're playing the oldest daughter, I believe, if I remember correctly. And she's like, she starts uncovering like different secrets about her family and about this house and about this city or this town that they're in. And it's just like, it just progressively and it's nothing like it's nothing supernatural. There's no like big horror scare or anything again, but it's just all about drama within the family. And it's just, oh my gosh. Shay in chat, the Oxenfree game. So Oxenfree is kind of similar to Gone Home, except with a supernatural bend. And it's a different play style. It's a side scroller instead of first person. But if you haven't played Oxenfree or Gone Home, I think they're both free with Game Pass, if I remember correctly, on Xbox.
Interesting.
But they're both like, oh my gosh, they are so strong as far as stories, which is pretty standard for a lot of the indie titles out there right now.
I feel like we've gotten to the point, like last week we did the whole story about the Black Armory Papers, and this week's top 3 is going to be real deep. I'm just like, I'm going to be a wreck going into the episode, just going to say that.
We're going to make you biased about it.
No. Let's not go there because I don't want Purple to come after me. Speaking of which, go before me.
Okay, so as previously mentioned, don't really have video games. So my top 3. So my first one is the play Fences by August Wilson.
Okay. I know August Wilson, but I don't know that particular play.
So it's about, like most August Wilson plays, it's about racism.
Yeah.
As you might expect. Basically, it's about a guy named Troy who played baseball, but he got imprisoned for murder accidentally And then he gets out, and he is with his family. And then there's like a whole bunch of tension of like why he can't get a job because of racism. And then he finds out that his mistress is pregnant, and the mistress dies in childbirth. And his wife agrees to take the baby and raise it as her own, but she leaves him. So now this baby has a different mom, but not a dad anymore. And then his son like gets all resentful of all the bad decisions that his dad made and joins the Marines. And like almost misses his dad's funeral, like refuses to go even though he got leave. And it's a whole like it's a mess.
Yeah. Gosh, the whole mother leaving with child that is technically not her own, but raises it as her own part alone is like, ah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Dang.
Yeah. So anyway, if you haven't read it, it's really good.
Are there moments of brightness at all, or is it just very typical his style of writing, where it's just kind of punch after gut punch?
Yeah, no, it's yeah, it's pretty dramatic. I mean, it takes place in 1957 in Pittsburgh.
Okay.
So,
dang. You know, I kind of have a semi-similar one for my number 3, because mine is BioShock Infinite, which I don't know how many people have finished the story in BioShock Infinite, but the story is just complicated, but it ends with you figuring out that Elizabeth, who is this character you've been kind of rescuing the whole time, is your daughter. And that you had originally traded her away to Cornstalk, who is like the main bad guy, in an alternative timeline when she was a baby. And so, like, you gotta think BioShock in general is just kind of weird, timey-wimey stuff going on.
Yeah, but Infinite actually explains why. Which is why it's like, it creates this massive headache trying to figure out like what's going on. But that's what I liked. See, I never finished playing Infinite because I couldn't. I wasn't a fan.
So good.
Oh yeah, no. That's what I was gonna say. I couldn't get over the mechanics, which is for me a really strong point. But the story was so good that's one of the few games that I actually went out and hunted down a like complete video of someone else playing it, and actually watched like not just cutscenes but actual gameplay too, because there's so much cool
lot of
going
stuff
on
that you get in there.
But like the ending explained like everything.
Right,
like,
because she has the power to manipulate time and space, and then you find out that the cornstalk from the timeline is actually you from a different timeline type thing. And then you end up having, in the end, Elizabeth drowns you in a lake to stop the continuous loop of her life and your life, destroying the entire fabric of your combined existence. So it's a suicide patricide.
Heyo.
Like, yikes. That whole game is just messed up from the beginning to end, though, because you talk about themes on racism and themes on kind of the patriarchy and stuff like that. It's just, all over that game. But that takes us to our number 2. Blue?
My number 2 is, so just a fair warning, you're going to probably not be surprised at my number 2 and number 1. Or at least some people aren't going to be surprised. Number 2 is Halo Reach, mostly because Halo Reach, like putting aside the drama about the lore aspect of it, there was a very well done ending to that game, in which so like if you know the story of Reach, you knew how the game was going to end. Like you knew going into the game it was not going to end well. But what they did, the mechanics of portraying that in the game was just amazing, because basically it's you. So like you're part of Noel team, and throughout the game, basically, especially near the latter half, the team keeps getting whittled down and members keep dying, until finally it's just Noble Six left, and that's your player. And then the final level is it's like chat's talking about it right now. The lone wolf is like basically the objective is survive. The problem is that it's impossible. Like you are literally put on the surface of Reach as it's getting destroyed. And the entire objective is to basically allow the ship with the package, which is basically Cortana, to escape. Like it's basically you're the Spartan's last stand, and you are the last Spartan. And it's like, I mean, it's gut wrenching because it's intense as all hell, from a gameplay mechanics, because it's just never ending, very difficult enemies. And then also you're having to watch, like, and then when you finally do fall, the camera angle, and it's one of those things where it just like hammers home exactly what was going on in that universe. And it's just really well done.
So wait a second. Is there literally no ending to that level? Like, I know
no, it's an endless. It's an endless. It's basically an endless firefight, and it just keeps getting more and more difficult, because basically as time goes on, more and more of the NPC allies start falling, and your difficult enemies start showing up, and then like, I mean, I think I can't remember. I know. Yeah, I think like the longest that I've heard of people is like 30 minutes.
Yeah,
like
that's what
that's what chat's talking about right now. And it's like, because after that it just gets bonkers. Like, it's just absolutely insane what's going on, and you start running out of ammo, you start getting like, really big bosses. It's just Oh, cuts off. Okay, it cuts off 30 minutes. Okay. So yeah, there must be a time ending then.
Okay. Just a timeout, like a never-ending gauntlet that you can never finish.
Yeah, well, I mean, and that was the intent, was like, it's like you can struggle all you want, but in order to beat the, quote, beat the level, you have to lose. And it's like, I think there's technically an achievement. I'd have to defer to Pens on that one. If you can stay, like, the longer you can stay. But yeah, I mean, it's just as far as a game synergizing mechanics with like what's actually going on in the story, it's really one of the ones that I hold really high, because it really does bring that weight of the situation, home.
Dang.
So,
okay.
Yeah, that's number 2 for me.
All right. So the gauntlet run at the end of Halo Reach. All right. Purple, what's your number 2?
It's the book Changes from the Dresden Files.
Oh, yay! I freaking love you. I love this file so much. And nobody really, like, it's such a good series in general. But yeah, I know what you're talking about. Explain.
I almost don't want to explain it, because if you haven't read them, then, but it is like the 12th book.
Yeah.
So
needless, okay, so Dresden's character has a bunch of that happens to him throughout the series. Like, he's kind of got so much going on, and I'm trying to remember exactly what happens in Changes.
Which one's Changes?
The very last? Is that the very
Changes
last?
Is the one that starts with Susan showing up.
Yeah.
And,
okay. Yeah. With the court, right?
With the red court.
Yeah, the red court. Because that was that after Susan had her run in, or was that before?
It was after.
It was after.
Because Susan met the red court for the first time in like book 1 or 2.
Right.
Early, yeah.
Yeah, it was really early.
Because it was during the mission when Dresden went into the Red Court and Susan was still a reporter.
Right.
Yeah.
So
that was really early. That was like book 1 or 2 or something like that.
Yeah.
And then Changes is book 12, and she like comes back and she's
I haven't read that far then. I think I'm on.
my gosh.
Yeah. So we're not going to talk about it.
I think I'm on 7 or 8. Like he basically just pissed off the elf the
Winter
Fey Court
Court
again. Yeah, the Winter Court again, but this time like really badly.
So
Okay, I mean that
Susan,
just kind of
yeah, that happens
don't.
continuously.
Yeah,
Susan
Whoa.
is Dresden's love interest for those people who haven't read or know anything about it. And needless to say, at the end of Changes, the book that she's talking about, something immensely devastating has to happen.
lots of devastating things happen.
Yeah.
Actually,
Well, yeah, I'm just thinking about the final scene though. It's like, oh god, oh man, yeah. But that is a very good book series. I consider it a candy book though. I don't know, like candy books for me are books that I can just sit down and read and I don't have to overanalyze it. So they're easy reads. Dresden Files definitely lines up with that, but it's not easy in the emotions for sure because there are many times
God, man, the one of the early scenes where you get this sense of Dresden's powers when he loses his calm with the demons who killed the kids. And he melts them. And all the other wizards are like, and he's like, what? Say something. And I was like, oh, I really like you.
Yep. Ah, gosh, yeah, that one. I'm actually just going back. I should re-listen to all of them because I have them on audiobook because I used to listen to them when I was at the gym. But yeah, such a good series. I feel like mine's really lighthearted compared to yours now following it. Because my number 2 is Horizon Zero Dawn. Because of the ending where she kind of just discovers the whole thing with Gaia being technically quote unquote her mother, and that whole last couple of scenes with her just being heartbroken and dealing with that. I don't know. I have a real soft spot for kids who lose their mothers, or even if they don't lose their mothers either like reject them or something like that. It's just, that's always been a real soft spot for me because I lost my grandmother really young age and I can relate to it in fairly close terms in other ways. But yeah, Horizon Zero Dawn is my number 2. If you haven't seen the ending of it, there's the controversy about Hades leaving and going to, what's his name? I can't think of his name right now. The semi sort of guide character all the way through Horizon that ends up also being kind of sort of a bad guy at the same time. I can't think of his name.
Zavala?
No, well, I mean, that's the same voice actor, isn't it?
Yeah, Lance. I want to say
Reddick.
Reddick.
Yeah. But that one is not as gut-wrenching as Dresden. And if you just go read Dresden Files, guys, it's Jim Butcher. Just can't say that one enough. Which brings us to our number 1s. Blue, are you going to pick another Halo one?
Yep.
Yeah, I figured.
That's why. I mean, that's again. I mean,
Yeah.
The thing with the reason why is, so actually, I did see this mentioned in chat, and it did bring up a good point. Legacy of Kain series. It's not so much the ending, which is why I didn't really go with it. Like the whole freaking series is like depressing because basically throughout the series you get drip fed like what's actually happening. And it's just like, oh my God, it just feels like it's so sad. No, my number 1 is actually Halo 4. Simply because I kind of like my introduction to console gaming was Halo. Really, that's how I kind of got involved. And I don't know, like the dynamic between Chief and Cortana has always been just there in like my gaming kind of story. Like that dynamic has always been something that I held in high regard. It's a really strong story trope. They do it very well. Bungie did it very well. 343 is doing it very well. It's one of those
did it really well.
The books just blew it out of the water. The short stories the story where Cortana is being tortured by the Gravemind is one of just like the most amazing. But Halo 4 is where Cortana basically sacrifices herself to save Chief. And the reason why it just is like, I remember I remember clearly when I first saw this scene, because it was such a, it wasn't just like a gut punch. It was like someone stabbed you and then just was twisting the knife constantly, because Chief always has had that very expressive voice. Like he's always had, because you never see his face until this scene. Like this is actually the first time that we see in game his face. And so like his voice has always been very expressive. You always kind of, he doesn't really have emotion, but you kind of know how he's quote unquote feeling with his voice. That's just one of his very good voice actors. And like the conversation where he realizes what is going on, and she
practically has to trick him into doing it.
She does. She tricks him. So basically what happens is like you're fighting the Didact above Earth, and you're on the station, you're on the ship, and in order to defeat the Didact, you have to basically blow up the ship. But in order to do that, you have to be inside the center of the ship, basically. So Chief basically dives into the ship with a bomb, and like he normally does. And in the process, he actually does manage to destroy it. But then she basically kind of uses part of her. So Cortana has been fragmenting herself to keep the Didact busy. Long story short, or it's a confusion tactic for him, a smokescreen. And then she basically she sacrifices like the 90% of herself to keep the Didact busy, and then uses this like fragment of herself to basically teleport Chief off the ship while it's blowing up to save him. And like, so there's a scene where he's actually activating the bomb, and then everything goes white. And then you kind of come to, and he's inside this bubble, and Cortana actually materializes. It's the first time that Cortana is actually able to physically interact with Chief, which is a huge deal as well. It's a long time coming. She calls that out. It's amazing acting on both their parts. And then like the moment that you just like die is when Chief realizes that he can't save her. Like it's like looking at a person reduced to a 5-year-old and then telling that person that their puppy was run over. And that doesn't even do it. That doesn't even do it justice. Cortana is a part of him, like literally and figuratively. He is not like they often had a comment in throughout the series about how he was more machine and she was more human. She was the machine that was human. He was the human that was machine. And so now, which is why, like in Halo 5, a lot of the stuff that happened building up to Halo 5, a lot of the drama was Chief's conscience is gone. Like Cortana was the thing that made him like do certain things. Like she helped guide him, helped teach him stuff. And she just was, I mean, she's not just gone, she's been ripped away. And so there's a lot of, just pain and loss. I mean, it's a huge emotional just blow, and he does so well. Like he encapsulates that emotion in like the little voice lines that he had. Oh my god.
Oh yeah, for sure. Halo, that one I actually cried at. Like I didn't play a lot of Halo. I played ODST and then immediately went into 4 and was really confused. But I read the book, so that helped.
Yeah.
But that's at the end of that one, I did cry just because of the relationship. You can tell they obviously made them really close, and how much love that Cortana shows for him in general is intense.
Yeah, and so and Penn's just mentioned that too. Like the very last line of the game, if you don't unlock the legendary scene, is a scene with Chief standing on the bridge, or not at the bridge, but standing on a balcony on the Infinity, and Lasky comes up, and Lasky tries to console him, and it just doesn't, like, Chief doesn't talk, like, and he's in his armor. He's like literally and figuratively again in that armor that's kind of protecting him. And Lasky makes a comment about, protecting Earth, and how he's sorry for Chief's loss and blah, blah, blah. And Chief just turns around and is like, soldier's job is, or it's like a soldier's job is to protect humanity no matter the cost. And Lasky kind of like looks at him and he's like, but we're also like, he's like, soldiers are humanity. Like they're not two separate things. And basically one of the last lines is Chief remembering that Cortana always told him that he was more machine than human. And it's just like, it just breaks me, because it's like listening to a child, but it's in the body of, this massive warrior. And it's just.
Mm-hmm. Purple. Is it the one that you mentioned in chat that's going to be your last one?
No.
No? You didn't go that route? I was really... Okay. I was looking forward to that one. I was like...
If we want to talk about it, we could talk about it.
No, go for your actual number one. I'll put it on the and also ran for me.
Okay. So my number one is going to be... I'm going to go like full on white girl here. The Fault in Our Stars.
Oh, okay. Not expecting that one at all.
Hey, Purple, I have a pumpkin spice latte and some Ugg boots for you if you need those.
Thank you. Thank you.
God.
I appreciate you.
God.
I told you.
Okay.
But mostly because it's about cancer, and cancer is runs rampant in my family, so it's like really emotionally attached to me.
Yeah, I know that feeling. Yeah.
So
chat wants to know, are you talking about the book or the movie?
Well, the book.
Okay.
I didn't actually watch the movie. I didn't think I'd be able to handle that because I cried hard enough when I read the book.
Mm-hmm.
Is that the
but
one
I heard that it's good.
Is that who wrote that? Is that one of the Green brothers?
John Green.
Okay.
John Green, yeah.
Green, okay. I was like, I thought I remembered one of them had written that, yeah.
Yes.
He writes quite a few of those like gut-wrenching kind of...
Yes. Most of his books are very sad. I don't think I've ever read one that really has a happy ending.
Yeah, no. It's not... Yeah,
they're all real sad.
Oh, gosh. All right. So, we had somebody sneak into chat here. Mr. Beard Grizzly, what are your 3, 2, and 1 for saddest endings to a game?
Oh man, I get to do all 3 of them in a row.
Yes.
My number 3 kind of comes with a small preface. It's mainly because of the time that you're with the character more than anything else. And it's also kind of like a build-up to it. You know that it's basically a necessary component for the story to continue, and you know effectively that this character, actually kind of funny enough, the number 2 I have kind of fits this bill too. But long story short, you're with this character for 3 games. You basically are literally inside of their head or their DNA, if you will, and you're really just learning more and more about them. And it would be Assassin's Creed Revelations, Ezio Auditore da Firenze. The ending to that character speaks volumes to the way that he developed the entire time, how he basically matured and changed from moment 1 to moment end, and also, of course, when all is said and done, you kind of sit back and, as it says with Revelations, you still reflect back on everything that kind of happened with you and that character. But a very important character, I think, to me within gaming in general. I am a very big... I haven't really been too interested, I guess, in a lot of the Assassin's Creed games of late, but 2, Brotherhood and Revelations will definitely always be, I think, in my memory as some of the best ones.
Ezio trilogy is just top of the line.
It's so good. I mean, the writing, I feel, was kind of out of the park. The overall build up and everything, the character development,
the growth of Ezio alone, oh my god, it was amazing.
I gotta say, him it's seeing an assassin basically go from, well, I'm going to use this to kill people and just use it as a mask, to effectively going to a more respected position within that ranking then as well.
Mhm.
That really does carry a lot of weight. That just shows that how that character has kind of grown up and changed and so on. You do actually get to experience his death then as well. They have a short movie that they created for after the fact. And it was pretty well fitting to how you would expect it all to kind of go down. And it was even respectful from the Templar side of everything. It really just came down to, like, no hard feelings. You've done a lot of stuff to, further both causes in a little bit of a way, but it's just time to kind of end it and let you rest. And that just kind of like hit me home. That was a really, really, like, it just carried on, I think, for a little bit too long in my mind afterward, because how much I cared for that character. Anyway, my number 2 will actually be from the other side of the pond. Actually, both of them will end up being so. I feel like I'm the only one here that played a lot of Eastern titles. I could be wrong.
You're right on. At least for me, I didn't even get exposed to them.
Yeah. Some will be somewhat familiar with this character by the end of things, because he's basically the catalyst for the entirety of this arc. This character was so prevalent and important to the overall story of this, what turned into a franchise, that effectively it turned into something that needed to be, I don't know, they needed to expand on it more because so many people had questions. Final Fantasy VII will remain one of my absolute favorite games of all time, but the one that unfortunately not many got to play was Final Fantasy VII Crisis Core. In Crisis Core, you play as the soldier first class Zack Fair. He doesn't start as first class, but he turns into a first class soldier. You later learn why Cloud basically is broken the way that he is. You find out why Cloud is effectively kind of lost in his own brain and lost kind of doing his own thing. And it all comes down to the fact that I'll just kind of spit off the words that always go back in my head. You are my living legacy. By the end of it, there are 3 members of Soldier's first rank class, both with Angeal, Genesis, and Sephiroth. And at the end of it, all 3 of them are gone, and then you even have Zack Fair, who also dies by the end of Crisis Core. And his story was one that ended up wanting to be kind of expanded and kind of showcased. Cloud was actually never first-class soldier. He was basically carrying on all the memories and so on about basically what Zack was about and how his first-class membership kind of carried on. But yeah, Zack Fair, as well as also the majority of how all that kind of handled Final Fantasy VII in general was just pretty bad. And my last, or my number 1, I guess, actually goes to a completely different direction entirely, from a couple of very dark games to all of a sudden a very cartoony one. And it'll be funny because many people would probably figure I'd say something like Nier or Final Fantasy VIII, 7, or Final Fantasy X, or something similar. And then I've got Blue over here, like Metal Gear Solid 2, and no.
Feel the sorrow!
No. Well, that was also MGS3.
Oh, that was 3? Oh.
Yeah.
All I know is
that
it was a really traumatic ending.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm going to say, considering the catalyst and how that all kind of went. I don't know, because for me, the catalyst basically is that they have to have a fairly, like, their story has to almost end at the point that they're talking about overall. And that's where I think it ends up really hitting home with this next one a little bit. I was going to say, goodness, now what was it? I was going to say Wind Waker. Wind Waker is probably one of the more, it's the cutesy one, it's the one where you're on the sea the entire time, but Wind Waker's overall antithesis and idea is effectively you're completely submerging Hyrule back underwater. You fail as the hero of legend, you fail to carry on that entire title, and you effectively are just submerging everything in. But then I remembered the more that I sat back and thought about it, Majora's Mask has to take a place in there somewhere as well.
Majora's and Twilight Princess.
Yeah, but Majora's more than anything, because Majora's has the possible fan theory that kind of surrounds it as well.
Yeah.
Because I was not expecting you to go Zelda at all with this one.
Well, to be fair, though, he's got a good point, because Zelda has a really depressing story.
Oh, yeah. It really does. I just wasn't expecting it. Not that it is a bad thing. It's just I was expecting Nier Automata to be up there, or just Nier in general.
Funny enough, I really didn't cry too much or feel as much, I think, over the course of like Nier Automata. It could have been that their stories were perhaps a little bit too outlandish.
Okay.
Like Zelda is...
I think it's also the dichotomy,
to say that like
right?
Nier isn't... Yeah. I mean, Zelda is one of those tales that has been with me, of course, since I was very young. I was born the same year the first one came out, so for me, it's always just been one of those games that has always stuck with me. But for Majora's Mask, if you guys aren't familiar with it, since we kind of drew this out, the idea that either Link is either dead or at least sent to a different realm or whatnot, he does effectively pop back out of the Termina Fields, but the entirety of the game is basically the different stages of grief. The fact that you're constantly turning back time and you're one of the only ones that really isn't affected by it, or you're experiencing it, but you're helping to push people through it, is one of the most touching and impactful analogies that I think I've ever seen within gaming in general. But the fact that by the end of Majora's Mask, you effectively forgive and forget what had happened with the Skull Kid and whatnot, and just moved on and helped him to kind of figure things out, was amazing. But it's that lead up, it's that final moment, it's that final ending point, if you will, to what might have happened to that Link, to that version of him, where he returns to Hyrule and is confused by anything that may have happened, where Ganon's forces and Hyrule's forces may have started to collide and have battles and so on, and where now there's another meaning for all of it to basically, be carried on. And all of these battles basically ensue to possibly seeing Link becoming a Knight of Hyrule. And because of this Knight of Hyrule, he basically doesn't see that version of Link. He experienced what the hero of time, adult Link in Ocarina of Time, had. I know I'm getting on timeline theory here, but he experienced what the adult Link of that time period knew what was happening. But he was sent back into the past in order to to still have a child's life and to still try to grow up, and he just never could. He could never fit back into society with that knowledge, ever.
Well, the entire reason you're time hopping is because, to kind of carry the analogy, is because of the destruction of the world.
Right.
And so like
it effectively
grief is the destruction of, like, so basically you're trying to push yourself through this process of grief, because otherwise it's going to destroy everything.
Yep.
Jeez.
Yeah,
oh my god, it's an amazing analysis, but it will punch you it'll punch you right in the feels.
Anybody that thinks that like Legend of Zelda is just basically there as like a child's overall tale or something like that
Mhm.
once you really dig into the heart of it, you start to realize just how involved it is. I had said something on Twitter that I have like this entire like overlay in my mind right now of like an overarching theory of what's going on with the history of Zelda and like where it all even started before Skyward Sword. And it's something that I don't think I've heard anybody really even talk about. And it's all thanks to kind of like some of the stuff that we sort of know of, thanks to Majora's Mask or thanks to Skyward Sword, thanks to especially with Breath of the Wild as well.
Mhm.
Breath, and again, it could be that I'm involved right now with Breath of the Wild. I absolutely love that game. But Zelda right now is really just heavy in my head, and I'm heavy in my head and in my heart, just in terms of like what has developed in that story over the past 33 years at this point now that it's been released.
Yeah.
But to finish my entirety here, the possibility that in Twilight Princess, the other Link basically carries on or gives that new generation of Link the skills that he had learned is basically his way of being able to live out his life as the hero that he knew that he was but wasn't all at the same time. The fact that there are then from Ocarina of Time's points in time, there are then three timelines that develop. It's just ridiculous. Anyway, I carried that on a lot longer than I kind of expected I
No.
would, but it's either, Breath. I have a
Majora's
feeling.
Mask.
Yeah, I have a feeling I've been told that Breath of the Wild gets very heavy very fast, and
Towards the end, yeah.
that's what I'm kind of expecting.
I have not played that one, but I've watched enough gameplay to be like, okay, all right.
And with it being like one of the first like voice type games, that's the other thing that's making me kind of wonder. But definitely between like the Fall of Hyrule in Wind Waker, and just the fact that like you're finally saying like adieu to that entire idea within that timeline, and carrying it on and moving forward, just to go into another realm and have the same thing happen again, or also for Majora's Mask and just the timing that is effectively like slipped into that. Just Majora's Mask in general is just really heavy. If you guys have never like listened to theories or anything about it, it's rough. You'll be sitting there going, "This is for kids."
Yeah.
Anyway, I'll leave it there before I just keep talking.
You're good. You're good. Mine's not going to end up much better, and it's definitely not for kids. And it's one of the games we've covered on the Extra Lore series, and it's the Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice. The ending of that one, Hellblade, we've talked about it so many times, and it got such a great amount of praise initially when it came out, and then everybody kind of stopped talking about it. But it's such a psychological gut punch once you figure out exactly what happens at the end, and it's hopeful but depressing and emotional, and I don't know. It's just one of those things where it's both gut-wrenching at the end, but also hopeful. So I choose that one as my number one, as kind of a crossover between the really sad aspect, because it is sad, and the hopeful aspect afterwards, because she's able to process things completely, or at least on her way of processing. If you haven't played that game, or if you haven't read that game, it is, or not read that game, but read anything about this game, there we go. It is very much so steeped in kind of a Norse mythology and the psychology that goes into somebody with Blue. You're going to have to help me with this since you have the degree in it. Psychosis.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's a break from reality.
Yeah.
So it's not. I mean, it's a form of psychosis, but yeah, the entire underlying story in Hellblade, like as you kind of learn through the game of the actual cause of what's happening, is really, and then also I really strongly, if you haven't I really strongly urge people to also go watch the behind the scenes explanations from Ninja Theory on why they made it the way they did and what the point. Like there is legit points to what they're doing in every aspect of that game, and it's really well done. And it's also, I think it's one of the few games again that I've actually watched the entire game played. I haven't played it yet. It just landed on Xbox Game Pass, by the way. Because I just downloaded it, so I have it. I just haven't had a chance to play it yet.
The gameplay itself is
intense.
It's intense, but it's actually not. It's not incredibly difficult gameplay. Once you figure out the mechanics, it's fairly straightforward, and it reminds me a lot of Assassin's Creed once it got to the point where the mechanics actually targeted correctly. Instead of
once it worked.
Oh man. Assassin's Creed 1, I struggled through, but Assassin's Creed 2, once we got to the Ezio trilogy, it was fine. But Hellblade has that kind of same feel to it. That being said, let's end up this depressing, slightly sad episode of Top 3. Next week, I want to do something a little bit more uplifting. So we're going to take Mark, and I'm sorry if I'm going to butcher your last name. It is Mark Giedemann. We're going to take his suggestion of doing our top 3 motivators / inspirations. So going on the opposite end of the spectrum could be any motivator or inspiration for top 3 next week. Sound good?
Yeah, that's going to be a tough one.
Is it?
Well, no, I mean, like not bad. It's just, I mean, like there's a lot. I mean, yeah, I'll just boiling it down to just 3.
It could be a famous person. It could be not a famous person. Mm-hmm. Mine's not going to be a famous person.
Right?
It's,
open.
Yeah, it's open.
Yeah.
So I mean, narrowing it down may be a little difficult. I hope it's a little less difficult than narrowing down your top 3 endings, though. That being said, sorry for the slightly emotionally heart-wrenching episode, guys, but next week it's going to be a little bit lighter, a little bit brighter. And remember, everybody loves a list.